In at number 10, Janet Jackson. It's very rare that a celebrity in Hollywood is able to keep their relationship, or marriage for that matter, under the radar. However, Janet Jackson has been able to keep her multiple marriages and subsequent divorces all a secret from the tabloids. First, she was married to singer-songwriter Renee Elizondo in 1991, and that union remained under wraps until she filed for divorce in 2000. She then managed to keep her next marriage to billionaire Wissam Almana in 2012 a secret as well. This marriage actually really ended up changing Janet. She moved to London and abandoned her look to opt for a more conservative garb in the line with Almana's Muslim religion. The couple wed 2 years after they met, and much to everyone's surprise, the then 50-year-old Janet announced that she was pregnant with son Issa, who was born in January of this year. To even greater surprise, Janet then announced her separation from Almana 4 months later. In at number 9, Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin is typically all about the laugh, so it's really hard to believe her when she's talking about her late brother, a convicted pedophile. The public first learned about her older brother Kenny in her best-selling autobiography My Life on the D-List, and in the book Kathy spoke about growing up with her brother and how she felt a very violent energy whenever he was around. She even admitted to witnessing him beating up his own wife. What's just as disturbing was when Kathy explained how he was sexually inappropriate with her from the time that she was just a little girl. Ultimately, this shaped the way that she perceived the world and herself as she grew up. Kenny Griffin ended up going to prison and eventually passed away. In at number 8, Rose McGowan. Ever since the beginning of the Time's Up and Me Too movement, actress Rose McGowan has been an outspoken force for change. As a result, she's been very open about her own personal secrets involving mental illness and sexual abuse. Growing up, her life was plagued with pain because her parents belonged to a cult called the Children of God. According to Rose, the members believed in free love, and so she was raised in a commune where mistreating women was just normalized. She even cited that men in the cult would regularly mistreat women and force them to act as servants. In at number 7, Holly Madison. Having frequently visited the Playboy Mansion when she was a 20-year-old college student in Los Angeles, the aspiring actress decided to move into the house a year later in 2001. The Oregon native, who was familiar with Playboy and had been a fan, soon became Hugh Hefner's lead girlfriend, and the two appeared to fall madly in love. Over the course of their 7 years together, their untraditional relationship was followed on the E! Channel series called The Girls Next Door. Holly acted as the loyal wife figure alongside co-stars and fellow girlfriends Kendra and Bridget. However, in a bizarre series of events, Holly left the mansion claiming that Hugh had refused to marry her. That being said, this is exactly how Hef wanted things to appear to the general public. In her memoir titled Down the Rabbit Hole, she spoke openly about the relationship and revealed some deep-rooted secrets that Hugh never wanted us to know. Apparently, he knew that she was unhappy and just ignored her. Upon reflecting on it, she said that even though she gave 7 years of her life, the man could barely have a conversation with her. In at number 6, Melissa Joan Hart. Melissa Joan Hart may be a happily married mother of 3, but during her time as Sabrina the Teenage Witch, she partied like every other Hollywood star. In the 1990s, she appeared to be this squeaky clean actor, but that was just an image put forth by executives. In her tell-all book called Melissa Explains It All, she speaks very openly about all of the secret stories that she had to keep under wraps while acting in Hollywood. In one portion of the book, she says that she experimented with weed, ecstasy, mushrooms, and mescaline for about a year and a half. Looks like her broomstick wasn't the only thing that was getting her high. Am I right? Up top. No? Okay. On top of that, she spilled crazy details about making out with a woman in a limo and then heading to a Maxim photo shoot while still high, then revealing that it was her 3rd or 4th time on ecstasy for this photo shoot. Although all of this bad behavior, she says, is attributed to the bad crowd that she was hanging around with. I think she claimed also that Paris Hilton once offered her cocaine at a party, but obviously she denied. In at number 5, Daniel Radcliffe. Where does the time go? It feels like only yesterday that we were watching the adventures of Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Although because we were so engulfed in following Daniel Radcliffe bring this character to life, we failed to notice when he grew up. Not only that, but his confession that he had a drinking problem was sadly something that no one wanted to hear about. Thankfully, he beat this in 2010, but the actor himself has revealed that he would show up to the set of Harry Potter still intoxicated from the night before. Daniel said that there were times during his teen years where he felt like he was being watched, and while admitting that most of that may have been in his own head, he still didn't know how to deal with it. During an interview with Off Camera, he said, "In my case, the quickest way to forget about the fact that you're being watched is to get very drunk." In an interview for The Guardian, he said that he turned to alcohol to cope with the pressure of fame and potential failure. And as I mentioned, he has been sober since 2010, but said that his friends played a big role in his recovery. Although he did reveal some pretty crazy stuff about being intoxicated while filming Harry Potter. Daniel said, "I can honestly say I never drank at work on Harry Potter. I went into work still drunk, but I never drank at work. I can point to many scenes where I'm just gone, dead behind the eyes." That really changes that movie series for me. In at number 4, Jackie Chan. There are very few actors in the world that have forsaken their health and safety like Jackie Chan just in order to do their own stunts. As a master of the martial arts, he's put his skills to the test both physically and comedically. Over the course of his illustrious career, he has injured himself countless times but somehow remains unfazed. It's most likely because Jackie grew up in a family of risk takers. His mother, Li Chan, was a drug dealer, and his father actually was a secret agent for the Nationalist Guard. His father ended up fleeing to Hong Kong after Mao took power in 1940 1949, and his mother was forced to abandon her first two children due to extreme poverty. Jackie Chan's parents actually met in the most bizarre way possible, a reason for meeting that Jackie would keep quiet for many years. Lily and Charles Chan met when he busted her for drug possession. He ended up taking pity on her and then just letting her go. I mean, what an origin story for this Hollywood superstar. In at number 3, Richard Pryor. More often than not, comedians have very tragic backstories, and that can certainly be said for the legendary comedian Richard Pryor. The actor and comic struggled with addiction throughout his life, he was married 7 times, and even lit himself on fire once. However, his upbringing was even more of a personal struggle. Richard Pryor's mother, Gertrude, was a prostitute who worked out of his grandmother Marie's brothel. When Gertrude abandoned her son when he was only 10 years old, he was left in the hands of his abusive grandmother. Pryor's paternal side also didn't do him any favors. His father, Leroy, was a hustler and a boxer, yet despite his own demons and secrets, Pryor was able to turn his pain into comedy. In at number 2, 50 Cent. A lot of rappers talk about living a gangster lifestyle, but some of them actually do it. 50 Cent might seem egotistical and talk a big game, but the rapper has had a very tough childhood. The rapper, whose real name is Curtis Jackson, was born in Queens, New York, and his mother, Sabrina, was just 15 years old when she gave birth to him. Sabrina ended up turning to drug dealing to feed her son and became one of the most notorious drug dealers in the area. Unfortunately, she was killed in an unexplained fire when Jackson was only 8 years old. Still, he would go on to follow in her footsteps with drug dealing and was even shot 9 times in May of 2000. At the age of 19, an undercover police officer had arrested Jackson for selling 4 vials of cocaine, and then his home was raided 3 weeks later. He was then sentenced to 3 to 9 years, and he went to a boot camp instead to get his GED, but at this time he was already rapping and took on the name 50 Cent, which actually was an original moniker of a Brooklyn crook from the 1980s. Bunch of secrets in there for you that you can read on an autobiography page. Last but certainly not least, on our number 1 spot, Keith Richards. Nobody who started their career in the music business in the 1960s, and I mean nobody, has remained untouched by the glorious days of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. This is especially valid for the musicians of the legendary rock bands, most of whom have admitted to having consumed all kinds of substances in their time. But none of those are as bizarre as the one that Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones is said to have sampled. In 2007, a magazine revealed that the 72-year-old guitarist once mixed his father's ashes with cocaine and then snorted him. The veteran of drug marathons was convinced that his father wouldn't have objected at all, and added that he went down pretty well. Many years later, Richards realized that being still alive after decades of drug and alcohol abuse was just pure luck. He also advised that others not follow in his footsteps, and definitely abstain from snorting their parents. In at number 10, Leighton Meester. You'd never be able to tell by how she carries herself today, but this polished celebrity was actually born in a Texas prison while her mother was serving time for drug smuggling. Though her mother was allowed to spend 12 weeks in a halfway house with newborn Leighton, she was soon sent back to jail. Meester ended up living with her grandmother in Florida until her mother was released. At 10, her family moved to New York so that she could begin a career in modeling, only to then pack up again 4 years later and head to Los Angeles. Once in Hollywood, she began auditioning for various roles while taking acting classes, but she found it difficult to relate to kids her age because of her unstable upbringing, an upbringing that she kept hidden for a very long time. Her breakout acting role was when she portrayed Blair Waldorf on Gossip Girl, a character whose mother was the owner of a fashion empire, which, as you can imagine, was a stark contrast from her actual childhood. Today, though, she was worth an estimated $16 million. In at number 9, Selena Gomez. In typical rumor mill fashion, when singer Selena Gomez decided to cancel part of her world tour in 2013, the gossip magazines did all kinds of speculating as to why. They said she was battling a drug and alcohol addiction and listed a plethora of other unconfirmed conspiracies. The real reason that these types of stories kind of bubble up is because of how secretive celebrities are. Although, can we blame them? I'm sure there are some parts of their life that they just want to keep quiet. And turns out Gomez had been hiding a secret from the world, but it had nothing to do with indulging in addictions. Later on, Selena revealed to Billboard that she had to undergo chemotherapy to treat lupus, a chronic autoimmune disease. She mainly wanted to wait for the right time to talk about it, and when she did, she didn't want to be loud about the whole thing. Selena just wanted to wait so that she could properly use her platform to help spread awareness. In at number 8, Prince. Prince has always been a wild and eccentric character. I mean, in 1993, he literally changed his name to a symbol. If that's not the definition of an enigma, I don't know what is. Although this brilliant musician was hiding a big secret from the world. For his entire life, Prince had been coping with epilepsy, which is a serious medical condition. Although in 2009, he revealed this secret during an interview with PBS. In the interview, Prince told host Tavis Smiley, "I've never spoken about this before, but I was born epileptic. I used to have seizures when I was young. My mother and father father didn't know what to do or how to handle it, but they did the best they could with what little they had. Although Prince said that after a while he was able to keep his condition largely under control. He also noted though that this control over his epilepsy came by way of an angel that spoke to him. In at number 7, Katie Holmes. Just 5 days before Tom Cruise celebrated his 50th birthday, his wife of 5 years, Katie Holmes, filed for divorce in New York. The world was completely shocked by this secret being unearthed. The couple had been spotted together on the set of Oblivion in Iceland just days before, and they were strolling along like nothing was going on. Everything's fine. Oh, look at us. Apparently, Holmes orchestrated her escape, if you will, from Cruise very carefully. She set up secret meetings with lawyers and prepared to battle for sole custody of their daughter, Suri. Now, although the details leading up to this was kept secret, if you were watching the tabloids, one could assume that she was using them to shift the public's perspective. Katie Holmes used the sympathies of the tabloids to convince people that she was just this kind of passive wife of Tom Cruise, was a maniac, which is believable, right? The weirdest part was that right after her divorce, she had all of these events set up where there would be people there to photograph her. Normally, following a divorce, you would think that you'd, maybe take some time to yourself, take some time off from work maybe, but nope, she just went right to the cover of the August issue of Elle magazine. In at number 6, Caitlyn Jenner. Back in 1971, Jenner participated in their first decathlon, and by 1972, Jenner was competing in the decathlon at the Munich Olympics. At those Olympics, they finished 10th overall in the event, and in 1976, Jenner went on to win the gold in the decathlon at the Montreal Olympics and was declared by the media to be the world's greatest athlete. Jenner was able to accomplish all of this while living with a deep personal secret that wouldn't be shared with the public for, another 40 years? In 2014, Jenner announced that they were divorcing from longtime wife Kris Jenner, and just a year later, Jenner shocked the world when they revealed that they had undergone gender reassignment surgery. At the age of 65, Caitlyn Jenner introduced herself to the world, and by 2015, ESPN had awarded Jenner the Arthur Ashe Courage Award, and to this day, Caitlyn is one of the most prominent public figures to come out as transgender. In at number 5, Lance Armstrong. In 2012, champion cyclist Lance Armstrong denied that he ever relied on performance-enhancing drugs. He referred to the doping allegations against him as outlandish and heinous. However, when the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency revealed compelling evidence, the cyclist's house of lies began to crumble. The agency released about 1,000 pages of evidence in doping allegations against Armstrong and his teammates. This led to him being stripped of 7 Tour de France titles and bronze Olympic medal, plus his secret forced him to step down as chairman of the Livestrong Foundation. Armstrong would later give a detailed account of his doping to Oprah Winfrey in 2013.
I view this situation as one big lie that I repeated a lot of times.
In at number 4, Arnold Schwarzenegger. This secret that Arnold kept ended up being the bombshell that destroyed his marriage. Just 5 days after Arnold's then wife Maria Shriver gave birth to their 4th son in 1997, the couple's housekeeper, Mildred Patricia Baina, also gave birth to a son by the same action star. He kept this child of his a secret until he completed 2 terms as California's governor in 2011. Then he finally confessed his infidelity to Shriver and later the public. All it took was the media identifying the mystery baby mama, and thus the celebrity scandal had been completed. There have always been celebrities that kept their kids out of the public eye, but nothing in terms of what Arnold was able to pull off by keeping this all a secret for so long. Imagine seeing that kid and be like, this kid looks like Arnold's son. Is that Arnold's son? In at number 3, Charlie Sheen. No one has really been attacked in the press like Charlie Sheen has. Not saying he hasn't earned some of his controversies, but let's just say that there are some very shady people in this world. The notorious actor appeared on NBC's Today Show in 2015 to announce that he was HIV positive. Charlie had been diagnosed with HIV 4 years prior and finally revealed his secret after several people actually tried to blackmail him. Allegedly, there were some people threatening to reveal this secret unless he gave them $10 million.
I'm here to admit that I am in fact HIV positive. And I have to put a stop to this onslaught.
If the timeline is 4 years from this interview, then his diagnosis would have come right as this whole controversy with the show 2.5 Men started. The one where he said in a bunch of interviews that he had tiger blood and Adonis DNA. It's no wonder with that much press on him already that he didn't want to also reveal what could even be perceived as a weakness to his health. In at number 2, Drake. This one was a huge reveal because for so long people were just simply speculating on whether or not Drake was dating someone. So when Pusha T released a track with a line directed at Drake that said, "You are hiding a child, let that boy come home, Adonis is your son," everyone that was watching that feud had this jaw-dropping moment when Drake finally revealed his secret son named Adonis. How did Pusha T know this? Drake would later record a song called Emotionless that explained why he had kept his son hidden from the public. He just didn't want to expose his son to the world that would have had their eyes on his every move. And it's understandable, but I believe it baffled people because it wasn't like he was like happily married to someone. He appeared to just be this rolling stone that was always rumored to be romantically involved with one celebrity or another. Last but certainly not least, on our number 1 spot, Justin Timberlake and Jessica Biel. Like many celebrities on this list, JT and JB have had an awful time trying to keep their personal lives out of the public eye. One thing that has certainly helped keep a lot of secrets is, well, this pandemic. I mean, if the paparazzi can't come within 6 feet of you and everyone's on lockdown in their homes, the tabloids must be just suffering right now. Although the Daily Mail still found a way to unearth some celebrity secrets when they revealed that Jessica had secretly given birth to a baby boy. The family are thought to be in Big Sky, Montana, where they have been spending time amid the coronavirus pandemic, and both of them have neglected to share any details whatsoever about the pregnancy, so I guess we'll have to check the Daily Mail if you want info on that celebrity secret.
Number 10, Matthew Perry. During his time playing Chandler Bing on the TV show Friends, fans would have never guessed that Matthew Perry was privately struggling with a Vicodin addiction. It all started with a horrible jet ski accident in 1997 that left the actor with pretty serious injuries, for which he was then prescribed the pain-blocking medication Vicodin. But throughout all this, the star was able to maintain his acting career and managed to keep his dependency under wraps. He told the New York Times in 2002 that he went to work in extreme cases of hangover, and it was so horrible to be like that and still have to be funny on top of that. His friend's co-star Lisa Kudrow noticed everything. Quote, "When Matthew was sick, it was not fun. We were just hopelessly standing on the sidelines. We were hurting a lot." Sometime later, the beloved actor confessed that the series was causing him immense stress, which subsequently made his addiction worse. But throughout all of this, Perry has a positive outlook on life. Quote, "The best thing about me is that if an alcoholic comes to me and says, 'Will you help me stop drinking?' I will say, 'Yes, I know how to do that.'" So it's amazing that he's now able to help others who are in the same situation. Number 9, Machine Gun Kelly. In a candid conversation with Dave Franco for Interview magazine, the 32-year-old singer revealed that he was dealing with a secret dependency on illicit substances while writing and recording music. He said that he believed that this is how you attained a certain level or unlocked something in your brain. Quote, "Adderall was a huge thing for me for a long time, and I went from orally taking it to then it, and then it became something where I was scared to ever go into a studio if I didn't have something." Kelly went on to say that he wouldn't even step out unless there was a medicine man who was going to visit him and give him what he needed. Quote, "And that's where it becomes a problem. You're telling yourself you can't do this without that, when really it's in you the whole time. If that pill did that for you, then everyone who's taken that would just be making albums and writing songs. And so that limited me." The singer explained that the most challenging part of recovery is separating his music persona, Machine Gun Kelly, from who he really is as Colson Baker, and credits his girlfriend Megan Fox as an essential part of his support system. But Kelly is putting in the work to live a sober life and is currently taking steps to change. In fact, he had his first therapy session last month, so things are looking good for him. Number 8, Demi Lovato. The star has struggled with addiction since 2010, when she first entered rehab at the age of 18. Over the years, Demi returned to rehab to treat an eating disorder, self-harm, and substance addiction. For the Disney Channel star, the success of Camp Rock and various other shows really launched her into the spotlight, but the way she coped with the stress and demands of superstardom was unfortunately turning to illicit substances. She managed to keep this all under wraps throughout her youth until her secret life was eventually exposed. In July of 2018, Demi suffered an overdose, and she spent several days in the hospital before going to treatment later that summer. In August, she told her Instagram followers that she was hospitalized, and she released the following statement on Instagram, quote, "What I've learned is that this illness is not something that disappears or fades with time. It's something I must continue to overcome and have not done yet." Since then, her journey through the ups and downs of sobriety has helped many people, and she has since been able to speak openly about her addictions. Number 7, Ben Affleck. The actor has long been vocal about his sobriety throughout his career, starting with his openness about his family history and rehab stays. But it wasn't wasn't always this way. In fact, for many years, he was battling his addiction to alcohol in secret. In 2012, he confessed to Barbara Walters that his father was an alcoholic and said that he drank all day, every day, explaining that the legacy of that is quite powerful and hard to shake. After starring in Good Will Hunting, Affleck took a serious look at his binge drinking. Quote, "I just wanted to stop. I started regretting some things I did when I was drunk. It's funny to be obnoxious or out of control. I have almost no inhibitions, so it's dangerous for me." But it wasn't until 2001 that the actor actually sought treatment for his alcoholism. He has since been to rehab multiple times and has been in recovery ever since. Things have been going well for the actor recently, but recovery can be an uphill battle, and Affleck suffered another setback in October 2019, 2 months after celebrating 1 year of sobriety, when he was photographed leaving a Halloween party intoxicated. But in January last year, he revealed on the podcast Awards Chatter that he feels very good despite having slips here and there. Number 6. Jamie Lee Curtis. It was 1998 and the iconic Scream Queen was cooking dinner for her and her 2 children in her LA home. And doing what she usually did, Jamie reached into her pants pocket and scooped up 5 Vicodin and swallowed them all at once with a swig of wine. But she didn't realize that a friend who was staying at the house was watching her from a doorway and she was caught red-handed. Quote, "The jig was up. Now I knew someone knew. I had been nursing a secret Vicodin addiction for a very long time, over 10 years. Jamie had been hooked on the substance after routine plastic surgery to remove the puffiness around her eyes. She said that the surgery itself wasn't painful, but they gave her Vicodin to aid recovery, and from there on she was hooked. Not only that, but the addiction ran in her family, and her brother Nicholas sadly passed away from substance use disorder at the age of 21 in 1994. Last year, Jamie opened up to Hello magazine about her struggle. Quote, "My recovery is the single greatest accomplishment that I will ever get to do in this human life. I have been clean and sober for 22 years. The actress is now an advocate for policies to reduce opioid misuse. Number 5. Dax Shepard. The actor, podcast host, and husband of Christian Bale has famously talked about his recovery process. In his podcast, The Armchair Expert, Dax said that he was proud to have been sober from alcohol and for the past 16 years, and that he wanted to be open and honest about his recovery journey in order to help others who might be struggling with active addiction. But talking about it wasn't always easy for him. In fact, earlier this year, he said he initially didn't want to go public with the relapse out of fear of losing his connection with people. The actor also reflected on his rock bottom and how his infamous 2004 interview with Conan O'Brien almost derailed his career entirely. Dax did the pre-interview with Conan while blackout drunk. Quote, "I show up on the show, I don't know what he's talking about, I can tell he's queuing me up for stories I've told, but I don't know any of the stories, so I'm just doing what I can to be funny out there and I am a mess." During the interview, he noticeably slurred his words before falling off the side of his chair and accidentally flipping the coffee table that was in front of him. But he's come a long way since then and now uses his experience to talk openly about addiction and sobriety in a way that is both funny and relatable. Number 4. Jamie Campbell Bower. The 33-year-old British actor began his ascent to fame in Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street in 2007 alongside Johnny Depp. He was then cast in Twilight New Moon as the ancient leader Caius and starred as a young Gellert Grindelwald in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 the following year. Today, Jamie is best known for playing the villain Vecna in Series 4 of Stranger Things, but has since revealed that he has been suffering from substance addiction in his early years. The actor posted a 2-part tweet telling fans about his problems with substance misuse and his time in hospital receiving mental health treatment. Quote, 12 and a half years ago, I was in active addiction, hurting myself and those around me who I love the most. It got so bad that eventually I ended up in hospital for mental health. But he went on to assure fans that he is now 7.5 years clean and sober. He admitted that he had made many mistakes in his life, but each day is a chance to start again, atone for mistakes and grow. He ended the tweet with an inspiring message by saying that he is so grateful to be sober and that all of us are works in progress. Number 3. Bradley Cooper. In a new episode of the Smartless podcast, hosted by Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and Sean Hayes, Bradley Cooper opened up about the addiction struggles that haunted his 20s and how a friend jump-started his journey to recovery. The Oscar-nominated actor said that when he moved to LA for his role in Alias, he felt like he was back in high high school, which ruined his self-esteem. Quote, "I couldn't get into any clubs, no girls wanted to look at me, I was totally depressed." He was later fired from the series and was dealing with an injury to his Achilles tendon at the same time. During this trying time in his career, he turned to coke, and his addiction slowly got worse over time. It was only when Cooper went to a dinner party with Arnett when he was 29 that he realized he had hit rock bottom. Arnett, who was essentially his hero, called him out for his rude behavior during the party, and then the actor had a light bulb moment and realized that he had a problem with illicit substances and alcohol. Then between the ages of 29 to 34, the actor worked really hard at sobriety and had an ongoing journey of self-acceptance thanks to therapy. Number 2. Travis Barker. The Blink-182 drummer was in a horrific plane crash in 2008 that killed everyone on board except for him and one passenger. Although Travis survived, his two closest friends, Chris Baker and Charles Still, lost their lives that day. The only other survivor, his friend Adam Goldstein, died the following year. In the aftermath of all the tragedy, Travis spent 3 months in the hospital and had to have 26 different surgeries performed on him and multiple skin grafts to treat his various injuries from the crash. But what's truly amazing here is prior to the accident, Travis had been suffering from an intense addiction to opioids for several years, as it was only the life-changing crash that altered his mental state enough to ditch the substances. He told Men's Health, quote, "People are always like, did you go to rehab? And I say no, I was in a plane crash. That was my rehab. Lose 3 of your friends and almost die? That was my wake-up call. If I wasn't in a crash, I would probably never quit." Travis said that he used to smoke an excessive amount of a certain leafy green substance and used painkillers as a method of coping with his fear of flying that he developed osteoporosis. In fact, in the hospital for 11 weeks following the crash, Travis frequently regained consciousness during surgeries because his opioid tolerance was so high. And coming in at number 1, Robert Downey Jr. The actor is now one of the most notable and inspiring cases for sobriety. Robert Downey Jr. has had a phenomenal Hollywood comeback story and is now one of the most bankable and highly paid actors in show business, starring in blockbuster comic book films like Iron Man and in the Avengers, but the actor spent most of his early career under the influence, leading to high-profile arrests and a string of rehab visits. His addiction started during childhood and was allegedly encouraged by his father, Robert Downey Sr., who also had a substance use disorder and allowed his son to try a leafy green substance at only 6 years old. According to a 1996 People article, the illicit substances actually facilitated an emotional bond between the two, and so for years, addiction was incredibly difficult for Downey Jr. to break away from. It was only when his wife, Susan Downey, revealed in 2003 that she gave her husband an ultimatum that he decided to quit for good. And apparently, it stuck because 10 years later, in an interview with Daily Mail, the actor credited a combination of 12-step programs, yoga, meditation, and therapy for keeping him sober.
So starting off at number 10, we have Tiger Woods. So back in 2009, Tiger Woods was at the top of his game, and he held the title of best golfer in the world. He also had a beautiful family with 2 kids and a loving wife. But it all changed when the National Enquirer accused him of having an affair with a nightclub manager. This then led Tiger to crash his Escalade into a neighbor's tree at 2 a.m. and he was charged for reckless driving. This then led to rumors that Tiger's wife, Elin Nordegren, knew of the affair and was physically attacking him for it and smashing his car. After all this came out, it got worse for the family when countless women came forward with their stories of sleeping with Woods, making it clear that Tiger was cheating throughout their picture-perfect marriage. A few months later, in February 2010, Woods came on television and made a statement about all of it, admitting he was unfaithful to his wife and he was going to be treated for a sex addiction. But because of all this, his golfing took a huge hit, and some of his biggest sponsors pulled the plug on him. And at number 9, Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner was known for many things over the last 2 decades, with her being a successful Olympic athlete and then the lovable and relatable dad of the Kardashian family on Keeping Up. But during all those years, Caitlyn was holding in a huge secret, and that was the fact that she identified as a woman practically her whole life. The situation started when Kris Jenner divorced Caitlyn in 2014, with the tabloids rumoring that Caitlyn was transitioning. But after months of speculation, Caitlyn set the record straight in July of 2015, and in an interview with Diane Sawyer, confirming that she was a woman. There was also a special on Keeping Up, where Caitlyn told her family of her new identity, and we got to see the family react to the news. And after all these years, it's great to see that Caitlyn now can live as her true self, but unfortunately some of the things she has said about her transition has caused her former Kar Jenner family members to distance themselves. And at number 8, Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber rose to fame as a teen idol and a bubblegum pop sensation. But this wholesome reputation didn't last as Justin got older, and he was caught starting fights, egging houses, and getting arrested for a DUI. Because of all the negative things about him in the press, he was banned from several countries and would leave his concerts early if people were annoying him. This caused some of his fans to turn on him, with him getting a water bottle thrown at his head during one performance. But after a few years with a bad reputation, he decided to turn it around in 2017, and he canceled a tour in order to spend more time attending church and making himself a better person. And now he's very outspoken about his dedication to God and makes it a center point of his life. And now that he's married, he seems to be on a better path. And at number 7, Coco Chanel. Coco Chanel is best known for creating one of the most recognizable luxury brand names ever. She was born in France in 1883. By the time she was 27, she owned a successful clothing store, and only 10 years later, she would release the little black dress and change the face of fashion forever. But while her brand was growing in the 1930s, France was taken over by Hitler's army, and many Parisians resisted the German invasion. But to the surprise of many, Coco was not one of those people, and she seemed to welcome the rules that the Germans were enforcing at the time. She even dated an SS soldier at one point, and although many say it meant nothing, there have been many rumors over the years that Coco was anti-Semitic. With one book called Sleeping with the Enemy, Coco Chanel's Secret War, the author alleges that Coco was actually a secret intelligence operative for the Germans. After the war, she fled to Switzerland, but she managed to come back to France later because she got funding from the wealthy Wertheimer family, who still control most of the company and do their best to avoid questions about Coco's relation to the Germans. And at number 6, Teresa Giudice. Teresa is best known for her messy antics on The Real Housewives of New Jersey, and it seemed that ever since she was featured on the show, she was doing everything possible to prove her and her husband were uber rich. But the cracks started to reveal themselves pretty fast. It started when the couple filed for bankruptcy. Then a few years later, Teresa and her husband Joe were sentenced to jail after pleading guilty to fraud charges in 2014. After pleading, Teresa ended up serving 11 months of the 15-month sentence and came out of jail $11 million in debt. But her husband had an even worse fate and was released to ICE, who later deported him back to Italy. And even worse, the couple ended up separating in 2019. And this is a classic case of what's called a duck, and that's someone who looks fine above water, but underneath their legs are kicking like crazy, and they're doing whatever they can to stay afloat and maintain that rich image. Halfway number 5, Amber Heard. If you watch I.O., then you definitely know about Amber Heard. Amber Heard and Johnny Depp were married in 2015 after meeting on the set of The Rum Diary. But only a year later, the couple had divorced, and Amber requested a restraining order against Depp, citing violence and physical abuse. Then an explosive TMZ video came out showing Depp throwing a wine bottle and glass at Heard. She also submitted pictures to the court showing bruises on her face. After all this was exposed, everyone took Amber's side, and Johnny was blacklisted from Hollywood. But the story wasn't over yet, and voice recordings were later leaked showing that Amber was actually abusive to Johnny on many occasions, and Heard had actually been accused of domestic violence many times in her past, while Johnny's ex-girlfriends came to his defense, saying that he had never hurt them. Right now, they're involved in a lengthy court case with Johnny suing Heard for defamation, and a lot more is coming out, including the fact that she in their bed, and I wish I was joking, but I sadly am not. In number 4, Matt Lauer. Matt Lauer was one of the biggest news personalities on NBC for 2 decades, and he rose through the ranks of the organization very quickly, with the network paying him $25 million a year. And near the end, he was so powerful at the company, he could practically do whatever he wanted, and he'd get away with it. But his days on top came to an end in 2017, when Lauer was abruptly fired after tons of sexual allegations were revealed. According to Ronan Farrow, it started with one employee complaining he forced himself on her in a hotel room during the 2014 Olympics. Then shortly after, 3 more women came out. As well, he's accused of treating women like objects and just being an all-around bad guy with a smooth-talking facade. Lauer claimed it was all consensual, but of course he was let go from the company and is now disgraced in the industry. And at number 3, Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen is one of the most beloved people ever, and before her huge scandal, she was one of the most well-known people on television. She was even nicknamed the Queen of Nice. But that all came crashing down in March of 2020, when Kevin T. Porter claimed that her niceness was all an act, and she was, quote, notoriously one of the meanest people alive. Then more people came out with their stories about Ellen, with one server saying she got fired because Ellen complained about her chipped nail polish. Then when the lockdowns happened, Ellen was one of the only shows that didn't pay her employees during the leave. Then tons of reports came out that Ellen's show had a toxic work environment, and top producers were accused of sexual conduct and racist behavior. She recently just came back on air, and time will tell if she can win back people's hearts. Based on the dislike ratings in her most recent Ellen 2 videos, it's not looking too good. In at number 2, Demi Lovato. Demi was one of Disney's most promising stars in the early 2000s, but there were a lot of up and downs happening behind the scenes of her life that no one really knew about. After Demi punched one of her backup dancers in 2010, Demi checked into rehab to address her, quote, emotional and personal issues. Some of those issues include bipolar disorder, an eating disorder, and frequent use of drugs. In her documentary, she opened up about her use of drugs further, saying, quote, I was sneaking it on planes, sneaking it on bathrooms, sneaking it through the night. Nobody knew. It was so bad she came close to ODing multiple times. One of those times was in 2018 when she was rushed to a hospital because she had taken too much. Since then, she's committed to remaining sober and is living a healthy life. And finally, number 1, Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams is known on television as the woman that spills the tea, and she is one of the most entertaining and shady hosts ever. And one of the things people love most about her is how honest she is with her fans, sharing most of the details of her personal life. But in 2017 is when things started happening. They made it clear there was more going on behind the scenes than we all knew. First, she fainted live on air in 2017, then took weeks off to rest, revealing later that she struggled with Graves' disease for years. Then in March of 2019, she made headlines when she revealed that she was sober after many years of being a functioning drug addict. Then only a few weeks later, it was revealed her and her husband were splitting after his mistress gave birth to a child, revealing later in an interview with Andy Cohen that she knew of her husband's infidelities for years, but she stayed because of her son.
At number 10, we have former Bachelor Australia contestant Kira Maguire, who revealed in 2016 that she was brought up in a polygamous cult in Victoria. The affiliation, known as the Seaside Sect, was founded by Kira's father and included his 9 wives. One of those wives was Kira's mother, and Kira's father was also detailed to have 64 children and endlessly devoted followers who were drawn to his, quote, religious teachings, with claims that he was the reincarnation of the Lord. When Kira spoke about her upbringing in a statement for Women's Day, she explained, quote, I am not in a position to comment. My mother removed my family from that environment when I was 5 years old, over 25 years ago. I was brought up by my mother and grandmother in Brisbane in a loving, caring, and compassionate household. At number 9, we have Joker's Joaquin Phoenix, who detailed to Playboy in a 2016 interview of him being born into the children of God. The Walk the Line actor says, when people bring up children of God, there's always something vaguely accusatory about it. It's guilt by association. I think it was really innocent on my parents' part. They really believed, but I don't think most people see it that way. I've always thought that was strange and unfair. TLG first came to light as Teens for Christ and is now known by its latest name of the Family International. This organization started as a method of messaging known as flirty fishing, which was explained to have used intercourse to depict God's love and mercy to gain new believers. In the same Playboy chit-chat, Joaquin also disclosed his parents' gradual realization of the disturbing nature of the group's practices. While Joaquin said he believed his parents' original thoughts of finding a community who shared their own ideals, on the opposite end, cults rarely brand themselves as just that. Instead, they deem themselves as, quote, like-minded people, but Joaquin detailed that as soon as his parents caught on to something darker happening, they got themselves out right away. At number 8, we have Stranger Things Joyce Byers actress Winona Ryder. Now, unlike a lot of other celebs on today's list, Winona seems to share great sentiment and respect for her former lifestyle. The group, known as the Rainbow Family Commune of Living, is located in California and is described as more of a community rather than a cult. Still, Winona was 7 when her family relocated into the Rainbow organization, and alongside 7 other families, Winona was reportedly living without television, music, and electricity across a 300-acre plot of land. According to the actress, she spent most of her developing years taking up an interest in her now career and reading, following her mother showing her and her siblings movies that were screen projected inside the farm's barn. When Winona recalled her childhood in a Dazed interview, she was incredibly fond and spoke highly of Rainbow. Quote, it was was pretty incredible. We were in 380 acres of redwoods and there was no electricity. At number 7 we have Smallville duo Kristen Cruick and Allison Mack, who were allegedly members of a group known as NXIVM. This quote religious organization brands itself as a self-help group for the rich and famous in accordance with the Albany Times. Apparently of the two, it was reportedly Kristen who initially joined the gathering and then proceeded to later drag Allison along with her. Multiple sources hint that the actresses were recruiting love slaves for their alleged leader Keith's subgroup called The Vow. Inside the practices of The Vow, it's been rumored that the women were constantly degraded, blackmailed, and mistreated. A former NXIVM publicist made claims that the gathering used girls who were not of legal age to fulfill Keith's needs, and the girls were branded with Keith and Allison's initials. Worse, it stated that Allison was the visionary behind branding the young girls. Not to mention Keith's arrest in March 2018 in Mexico for trafficking and forced labor, with video footage depicting Allison ready to follow the police if they chose to leave the property with Keith. As for Kristen, she made a tweet which spoke about her enrollment in the group, detailing that the course helped her overcome her shy nature. She also discussed on the social platform her leave and how she maintained minimal contact with anyone still involved. But at the same time, Kristen flat out denied all claims regarding the accusations of her being in the inner circle, as well as her non-involvement as a slave. There was even another former member who confirmed on Twitter that Kristen's non-inclusion being a part of the cult subgroup, where she was described as a lovely person who would never engage in those kinds of activities, and how she had gotten herself out of the mess before ish got weird. At number 6 we have Breathe Again singer Toni Braxton. Now Toni released a memoir titled Unbreak My Heart, which revealed the R&B singer's involvement with the Pillar of Truth, a Pentecostal apostolic group alongside her family as a young girl. Toni explained how her family soon fell into religious extremism. The behavior in question was known as the women and their nakedness needing to be covered up fully, and almost everything was deemed as evil. This evil included seemingly normal occurrences like going to the movies, for example. In light of her experience, Toni described connecting her faith and her devotion to God with that of judgment, anxiety, and guilt. Apparently, the group also alleged to require its members to speak in tongues. Reportedly, Toni had faked this at a mere 8 years old just to keep up, explaining, "The ties that bound us together became the ties that strangled us." As per the Daily Mail, the Braxton family first became a part of 2 more repressive churches before they settled themselves into the Truth Foundation. At number 5 we have Batman's Batwoman actress Michelle Pfeiffer. Michelle has not been quiet about her disclosure that she was once an addition to a cult in 2013. Apparently this group was brought up by 2 personal Hollywood trainers, and they would ritualistically practice breatharianism. The practice stems from one's ability to survive without food or water and sustain the belief that sunlight was the cure to providing everything the body needed. Michelle spoke with The Telegraph for an interview in 2013 regarding this, where she described how the group worked with weights and put people on diets. According to this interview, Michelle said they wanted soul vegans and were incredibly controlling. Michelle continued by explaining that she wasn't living with the group, but that she was there quite often, and how the group often pressured her to show up more frequently. Michelle said she was paying to be there at the time, so the experience was financially draining, among her other hardships. Lastly, Michelle spoke about how the group's highest state was breatharian. At number 4 we have Academy Award nominated Fatal Attraction actress Glenn Close, who opened up to The Hollywood Reporter in 2014 to reveal her position in her childhood cult, how she escaped the group, and the psychological damage it caused her. Glenn's father, Dr. William, reportedly brought his family to the right-wing religious group Moral Rearmament, or MRA for short, when Glenn was merely 7 years old. Quote, "For years, I wouldn't trust any of my instincts because my beliefs had all been dictated to me. You basically weren't allowed to do anything, or you were made to feel guilty about any unnatural desire. If you talk to anybody who was in a group that basically dictates how you're supposed to live and what you're supposed to say and how you're supposed to feel from the time you're 7 till the time you're 22, it has a profound impact on you. It's something you have to consciously overcome because all of your trigger points are wrong." At number 3 we have charmed actress Rose McGowan. Similar to Joaquin Phoenix's childhood, Rose expressed how she also spent her early days in the Children of God. Rose's father partook in the Italian chapter of the cult, reportedly reportedly located on the outskirts of Florence. But Rose has been extremely vocal in her time so far regarding her experiences and her successful escape. In a People interview, Rose recounted witnessing sexual misconduct as a child while living among the group. "I remember watching how the men were with the women. They were basically there to serve the men sexually. You were allowed to have more than one wife. The women would go to bars as lures and pick up recruits. They called it flirty fishing." For her escape, Rose took to rebelling by burning a wall made of Bibles and negatively responding to anyone who would ask her if she had, quote, let God into her heart. By the time Rose was 9, she removed herself from the group with her father once it was clearly brought to light that the group encouraged inappropriate relationships between adults and children. At number 2, we have the Arquette family, who disclosed that they were once a part of an unnamed cult started out by a bunch of friends. Actor David Arquette was born and brought up in a Virginia commune where he was living with his sisters Patricia and Rosanna and their parents. Patricia sat down with Oprah in 2011 to explain how said group desired to create a utopian society, where she added that the commune had no bathrooms, electricity, or running water. Patricia also revealed on a WTF with Mark Maron episode that her family parted ways with the commune when the members of the group's true colors began to reveal themselves, where she said, "My dad said you bring the seeds of society with you. So you think this is all a great concept, but then suddenly you realize, oh, that dude has a real anger management problem, and this person is an alcoholic, and this person's greedy, and what are we doing here?" Following their Virginia leave, Patricia touched on the topic of her family's return to Chicago before they finally settled in LA. At number 1, we have the Smith siblings, brother Jaden Smith and sister Willow Smith. While their group is not officially deemed as a technical cult in today's day and age, there have been allegations that both siblings are involved as active members in the Organite Society. According to the group page's Instagram, they are a, quote, secret society of individuals who create and place Organite to balance Gaia's energy. According to the group page's Instagram, they are a, quote, secret society of individuals who create and place Organite to balance Gaia's energies. The practice referred to as Gaia in question stems from Greek mythology and is the creator of Earth's personification and the universe, further known as Mother Earth. Both Jaden and Willow have been photographed with the crystallized Orgone pyramids, which supposedly dispose of negative energy and instead push out positive vibes. However, according to arguable, believable, or unbelievable reports, the group delves into far more than just their unofficial trademark of good vibes only.
Number 10, Chadwick Boseman. The late, great Chadwick Boseman was not just an incredible performer, but an incredible man. In his early years of acting, no matter what his status was, he was always vocal about the things that he did not agree with or understand. During a commencement speech to the graduating class of 2018 at his alma mater, Howard University, he spoke about a time when he was fired from a show for questioning the producers about the stereotypical depiction of his character. At first he was excited, as he was promised a 6-figure contract, more money than he'd ever seen in his life. However, the moment he saw the role that he was playing, he was conflicted. The role was wrapped up in assumptions about people of color. He said that the character was just a young man with a violent streak pulled into the allure of gangs and with zero glimpse of positivity or talent in the character. After filming a handful of episodes, Chadwick brought his concerns to the attention of the producers, who told him that they were very pleased with his performance, a performance that he was actually fired from the next day. Apparently, the things that he was asking caught the producers off guard. The conversation over the character actually came up when he was called into the production office, and they were very happy with what he'd been doing on the show, and it was clear they wanted him around for a long time. But when they asked him if he needed anything to be more comfortable, it was his opening. He asked them if they could just discuss his character a bit for plot purposes, asking them only 2 questions. Where is my father? And if my mother is not equipped to be a good parent, why did myself and my brother need to go to foster care? While the producers did have answers, when Chadwick asked if they felt that he was a stereotypical character at all, the producers stared for a moment before suggesting that he speak to the writers if he had any suggestions. The goal was to give his character a new lease on life, but the next day, he was fired for speaking his mind, something he's never regretted once and that never stopped him from pursuing his dreams. Number 9, Sylvester Stallone. Considering the success of the Beverly Hills Cop franchise, it's difficult to imagine anyone else in the leading role of Alex Foley other than Eddie Murphy. But it turns out that at the time, the role was initially offered to one of the biggest stars of the 1980s, Sylvester Stallone. What's funny still is that at the time he was not just a skilled actor, but earning an Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay for Rocky. But it seems that Rocky and the studio didn't really agree on many things, and eventually Stallone was exited from the project. One of the first major changes in Sly's version of the script was the violence. He wanted it to be ramped up to 100 and make it a real action movie. But the film was presented to him as a comedy. Even though he agreed to do it, he wanted to make some changes before the cameras rolled. He was exclusively told not to change anything about the film, but he insisted and rewrote the project as a 50-50 action comedy movie. When he presented the changes to the producers, they were not pleased with his script. In fact, quite the opposite. It was quickly decided that Sylvester would be let go as the lead and Eddie Murphy would be brought in to fill in the blanks. It was not in vain, as he took that mangled script, incorporated elements of the novel Fair Game by Paula Gosling, and eventually it became the 1986 film Cobra. Although it wasn't loved by critics, it did go on to make around $160 million globally, which pretty good at the time. Number 8, Edward Norton. Three-time Academy Award nominee Edward Norton has been the leading man in many memorable movies. Primal Fear, American History X, and of course the most famous one, but as we all know, but of course, one of his most famous and mainstream roles was in the 2008 MCU flick, The Incredible Hulk. Although the movie was not a massive success at first, the audience was shocked when Edward Norton was replaced by Mark Ruffalo in the first Avengers film. The president of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, said that the decision was not monetary, but it was actually due to the company wishing to hire an actor who embodied the creativity and collaboration that the other Marvel stars had so far shown on their projects. After Kevin made these statements, however, Norton was amicable but adamant about splitting ways with Marvel and mentioned that his roles in Birdman and Moonrise Kingdom would oppose the loud and extravagant role that he had in the MCU. Many believe that his calm response may be because he was paid handsomely before he was let go as a little bit of hush money. Marvel is good at hiding secrets, especially from their actors, but it was still so early in the MCU that Edward was certainly aware of hidden details and events that would make him a liability in the industry. Number 7, Colin Firth. The live-action Paddington movies are surprisingly very popular. The series, based on the children's book, has really hit home for a lot of people. First and second film are currently rated at 97% and 99% fresh, respectively. 99. The success of the film can of course be attributed to the incredible cast, including the voice of Paddington, Ben Whishaw. But of course, Ben was not the first voice that had been recorded for the role. Initially, the voice of Paddington was done by Kingsman star Colin Firth. I know he's been in other things, but I love those movies and that's how I know him best. Not only did Colin record all of the lines start to finish, but he was not told that he was being replaced until a couple of months before the premiere. In some of the first promotional videos for the film, the animated bear never does anything more than grunt. It turns out that the creative team felt Colin's voice just didn't match with the vibe that they were going for. It made Paddington sound too old and distinguished when he needed to be some fresh young thing. Yeah, he was just happy to be working. Now let's get into some more dark Hollywood backstories, shall we? Number 6, Jim Carrey's origins. A Canadian legend, Jim is considered one of the greatest modern comedians of all time, famously releasing 3 films in the year 1995, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura, which all made millions at the box office, and still hold up to this day. As many know, comedians tend to have a pretty rough backstory, as the best comedy comes from a place of pain. Over the years, Jim has come clean about his strange but fun upbringing. His family struggled financially, and he grew up watching his mother struggle with depression, which he claims to have passed down to him. Despite his energy, he was a bit of a recluse growing up and apparently spent hours in his room making faces in the mirror instead of hanging out with. After dropping out of high school to work a full-time job, Jim and his family were forced to live in a Volkswagen van together, becoming homeless for a short period of time. He went on to attempt a career in comedy, at first to minimal success, but of course, he was able to find his footing and made his place in comedy history. Number 5. Woody Harrelson's father. Woody is best known in Hollywood as the wildest wild child to ever exist. He eats raw meat, he's an eco-crusader, a protester against violence, and an advocate for the legalization of herbs and spices in the United States. He's loved on screen, but did you know that his father took people out for money? And I'm not talking about on dates. Charles Harrelson was sentenced to 2 lifetime sentences for the slaying of a federal judge in San Antonio. Prior to that charge, Charles had previously been acquitted for the slaying of Alan Berg, a carpet salesman, and convicted of the slaying of Sam DeGalia Jr. Yeah, the evidence shows that Charles was not a great Woody doesn't speak much of his father these days, opting to instead leave his family troubles in the past. He does, however, say that the one thing that his father said to him that he still uses to this day was, always keep an open mind. Yeah, Charles knew all about opening minds. You can't put that in the video, that's just for the editor.
I just did.
Number 4, Mark Wahlberg should be in jail. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch hit the rap scene in 1991. Despite sounding like the title of a cheesy kids show, the crew had a small following and garnered a lot of success, enough for leading man Mark Wahlberg to be spotted and picked up by Hollywood to star in The Corruptor, a 1999 action flick that sees Mark playing the leading man. Action by the numbers, kinda get it? He's had a successful acting career that has recently been declining in quality, but he's still acting and looks jacked at the age of 50-something. So please don't hurt me, Mark Wahlberg. Infinite was just hard to watch. Growing up in Boston, he was the youngest of 9 children and was relentlessly bullied by his fellow siblings. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he became addicted to no-no snow by the age of 13. He dropped out of high school and was eventually arrested when he was 18 for attempting to slay 2 Vietnamese men. Apparently, he was just walking home late one night under the influence of a hallucinogen narcotic that I won't get into, when he spotted the men. Close friends at the time confirmed that Mark had a racial biased upbringing, which caused him to be instantly aggressive towards anyone who, wasn't white. He attempted to swing a large log at them, which made contact and knocked one of them unconscious, and he was eventually released after serving only 45 days of his 2-year prison sentence. And he vowed to change his life. So far, he's kept that promise. I can personally confirm that he's very polite and patient because he actually watched a movie at a theater I used to work at. He travels with a crew of 5 people at all times. It's a little intimidating. Number 3, Tim Allen's hobbies. Tim Allen is the voice of Buzz Lightyear and the star of ABC's sitcom Home Improvement, which premiered in 1991. Now, while he may have played a family man on TV, many fans may not know that Tim was a smuggler of no-no snow in the early 1970s. According to Tim, he got mixed up with some bad people back in the day while he was selling certain substances on the street for a couple of bucks. In 1978, Tim was arrested in the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport, that's an awesome name, and was caught with more than 650 grams, 1.4 pounds of no-no snow. Unfortunately for Tim, state legislators had just passed a law that tied a life sentence to any conviction of selling 650 or more. Like, as he was being arrested, there was a guy in his car like, okay, and if you have 650 grams. Okay, yeah, you're a goner, Tim. However, that sentence was never served, as it was revealed that Tim was set up by an undercover police officer who had been following him for months. Due to this, and Tim's cooperation in providing the names of fellow dealers to the authorities, led to him receiving a lighter conviction that allowed him to be sentenced in a federal court instead of a state one, being able to ignore that new policy altogether. His information led to 20 arrests and the sentencing of a major dealer. That needs to be a movie. Number 2, they have backups. There have been many rumors over the years that Hollywood likes to clone their best and brightest on the off chance that they will need them again following an untimely demise. According to the internet, Paul Rudd actually got to star alongside his clone in the show Living With Yourself, not some CGI thing. Now, Paul has, of course, claimed the performance was achieved with CGI and filming one character one day and another the next, but come on, Paul Rudd's also 54 and looks, well, like that. Something's not right about that. Now, there is a theory out there that celebrities are made up of lizard people who take the forms of actors and singers to influence people. Paul is thought to be one of those lizard people. I don't know. I don't believe this theory. I'm just sharing some stuff I found on the internet. I don't believe any of this, okay? This is fun. It would be awesome if there were 2 Paul Rudds, though. In fact, that would probably be the most chill way to find out that clones existed. Just 2 Pauls being like, hi, I'm Paul. And another one being like, hi, I'm Paul. And everything's gonna be okay. Number 1, they're all broke. That's right, despite it being one of the most lucrative industries in the world, most of Hollywood actors, writers, directors, all of them are not as well off as people may think. Unless you've been living under a rock for the last little bit, most of Hollywood was closed for a while as its staff were on strike. Some of the toppest of tier actors joined the crew in solidarity, and they are actually still on strike right now, not stopping until Hollywood's producers and big budget studios start sharing the money they make. Actor Sean Gunn gave an interview a few weeks ago where he mentioned working on a show currently streaming on Netflix, a show that has made over $4 million in residuals, of which he has received basically nothing. This type of financial woe extends to a ton of people in Hollywood. Just wanted to take a moment to wish luck to anyone who's still out there, and hey, awesome that the writer part of the strike is over. That's pretty sick.
At number 10 is Shaq's embarrassing trip to Walmart. The NBA Hall of Famer is one of the greatest basketball players of all time and is also hilarious, by the way. Honestly, I feel like his comedy is a little underrated, not gonna lie. Even though he's retired now, he still maintains his funny personality on social media and in live interviews. During one of his interviews in 2018 while he was on The Late Late Show, he shared the story about a time that he went to Walmart and his credit card got declined. The incident happened after he was traded from Miami to Phoenix and he needed furniture for his new apartment because he didn't want to wait for his stuff to arrive from Miami. So he went to Walmart and spent $70,000, but his credit card got declined several times and he actually had to call American Express with everyone watching. $70,000 at Walmart? What are you buying? Moving on to number 9 is Madonna opens up about her sex life. Leave it up to Ellen to add a game to her show that has her celebrity guests opening up about their personal business. She added this classic party game, Never Ever Have I Ever, and has them answer with an answer card that says they have, or if they flip it, it says they have never. Madonna was paired with Justin Bieber to play, and Ellen asked them, never ever have I ever had sex with more than 2 different people in one day. Justin and Ellen both held up the I have never card, but Madonna held up the I have. Unfortunately, we didn't get any more details about who her 2-for-1 hookups were, but we did learn that she is just a little more frisky than we thought. Cruising into our number 8 spot is the time that Diddy confessed the craziest place that he had sex. Ellen DeGeneres is back at it again with a fun game to get some gossip about her guests, and one of them is called Hot Seat. Her guests sit with her in 2 hot seats and they fire off questions that they have to answer and then they quickly hit the buzzer when they are done. Apparently her show just has no shame in asking people about their sex life because she asked him where is the craziest place you've had sex. But he had no shame in answering and revealed the secret that he's actually had sex at Nobu, which is one of the most famous and popular restaurants in LA. So next time you're eating at Nobu, just know that he had sex there. In spot number 7 is Kim Kardashian accidentally revealed the gender of her child. In the world of Hollywood, media outlets would fight to their death to find out a secret like this so that they could be the first to publish it. But Kim didn't give them the chance because she accidentally let it slip during an interview on Ellen. Her and her husband Kanye West revealed that they were going to have their 3rd child through a surrogate but didn't want to reveal the gender. She screwed up though when she was telling a story about her daughter North wanting to keep all the new baby's toys in her room. She said that the day after the shower, North went up to her and said, "Mom, since baby sister's not here, I think I need all of her toys in my room and I'll play with them and make sure they're okay for baby sister." Ellen was quick to point out that she just told us it is a girl because she's having a baby sister. Oops. And number 6 is a time that Denise Richards talked about her lesbian fling. Most people are used to seeing her as Charlie Sheen's former wife and also the mother to his kids. But when she did an interview on the Howard Stern show, she revealed some spicy information about her life outside of Mr. Sheen. She admitted that she had hooked up with a female friend. She wouldn't reveal who it was, but said that she's also a well-known Hollywood star. She talked about it and said, "I just met her through friends and work and stuff. I was just curious. We were curious. She was a girly girl and she's beautiful. You would know who she is." Come on, Denise, we need more than that. Tell us who it is. I want to know. We are halfway through and we have Justin Timberlake admitted to a hookup. He was another victim of Ellen's game of Never Ever Have I Ever, and he played with the infamous boy band NSYNC. They were all asked, never ever have I ever slept with a Spice Girl. Justin was the only person to turn the card so that it said I have. The audience began cheering and of course they wanted to know which Spice Girl it was, but he refused to tell. Leave it up to fans to come to the conclusion though that it was Baby Spice. They started posting a video clip of an interview she did back in 2004 when she was asked if she had a one-nighter with Justin because those were the rumors going on at the time. She responded with, "We hung out and partied a bit and he's very sweet. He spoke about this first because otherwise I would have not said a word. He's very sweet." So she didn't really confirm nor deny. At number 4 we have J-Lo snuck a man into her house. Now you're probably wondering why she would have to sneak a man into her house, like she is an adult and she's also J-Lo so she can basically do whatever she wants and invite people into her house at any time. But there is one thing she has to consider and that is her kids, which is ultimately her biggest priority. During an interview one time she was asked about her love life and if she has ever had to sneak a man into her house, and she revealed that she totally has. Fans were hoping she might spill the tea and tell us who it was, but she kept that little detail to herself and admitted that she has totally snuck a man in at night while her kids were sleeping. Alright guys, we have made it to number 3 and it's a bit more serious. Melissa Joan Hart revealed on a talk show that she did drugs during her time as Sabrina the Teenage Witch. For a long time, she was the ultimate girl next door. Audiences fell in love with her instantly and she quickly became a teen star. But back in 2013, she got candid during an interview and dished details about her wild side. She said she had drug-fueled Hollywood nights and revealed shocking affairs with some of her co-stars at the time. She said, "I experimented with weed, ecstasy, and mushrooms for about a year and a half." One of her most shocking stories was from 1999, where she said she took ecstasy one night at the Playboy Mansion, made out with a girl on the limo ride home, and then showed up to her Maxim photo shoot still high from the night before. Honestly, I would have never suspected this from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Kinda ruining my childhood a little bit, kinda weird to think about, but hey. I don't judge. Taking over the number 2 spot is Leslie Jones, used to work for Scientology. The SNL star was on the Ellen DeGeneres show when she was asked what job she worked before she was famous. Surely, she could have said any of her other jobs, like McDonald's or Walmart or something. I'm sure we all had a part-time job. But instead, she was honest and admitted that she used to be a telemarketer for Scientology. She said, "I lived in Glendale. I needed to pay the rent and it was a very easy interview. I just acted crazy. They kinda still don't know I'm not a Scientologist." She cracked a joke to the camera and apologized to other Scientologists out there for revealing things. But she seemed to have no problem revealing the secret, despite all the controversy around the religion. In our number 1 spot is Holly Madison revealing dark secrets about Hugh Hefner. Many people would love to know all the juicy details of what really went on in the Playboy Mansion when Hugh Hefner was still with us. But thanks to his former girlfriend Holly Madison, we do. After being his number 1 girlfriend in the house and dating him for 6 years, she decided to write a tell-all book called Down the Rabbit Hole back in 2015. The book exposed their age difference in the relationship and just everything that came along with it. She then went on to do some talk shows where she talked about personal experiences in their sex life, saying they used to engage in group sex in his bedroom, and also admitted to the wild parties that they had at the house, claiming that some of the girls would actually be drugged at the party and then taken advantage of. Some of her claims were pretty serious, and her former playmate said that she was lying and actually did not defend her statements. So basically, it's if you believe her or not.
So starting off at number 10, we have Kris Jenner. Kris Jenner revealed one of her most regretful secrets in her memoir, Kris Jenner and All Things Kardashian. In the book, she gave details on her affair with Todd Waterman that happened while she was still married to Rob Kardashian. She wrote in her memoir, quote, "We had sex everywhere, all the time. Out of control, crazy, dangerous, wild sex." She admitted to doing it in cars, on the tennis court, in the pool house, and even the garage. Jenner opened up in interviews later that she thinks it was her age that caused her to make the mistake. Since she met Rob at the age of 18, then married him at 22, she was getting bored of their marriage after 10 years of being together. And when she was introduced to Todd, who was 10 years younger than her, she was smitten. Adding that people always think the grass is greener, but she deeply regrets her cheating. And at number 9, Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore has been opening up about her horrible childhood and all the terrible things she did when she was just a preteen. In her book, she revealed that she got into drugs when she was just 10 years old. Writing, quote, "When I was 10 and a half, I was sitting in the back seat of a car driven by a friend's mother. She started smoking pot. I wanted to try it for a long time, but I was afraid if I asked, she'd say, 'No way, Drew, you're too young.' However, she offered me some, and I said, 'Sure, I'll try it.' I was shocked. But she had that look to say, 'Isn't it cute, a little girl getting stoned?' And she also just revealed on an episode of her show with Paris Hilton that she went to behavioral schools when she was younger because she was so out of control, and she was locked in solitary many times. And at number 8, Woody Harrelson. Actor Woody Harrelson has been part of the film industry for decades now, and he's a true Hollywood legend. But while you might never expect him to have some familial skeletons in the closet, he does, and his father was actually a notorious hitman. And he actually committed the first assassination of a judge in the 20th century. But that was not his only one. He also killed a carpet salesman for $1,500 after a deal fell through. Apparently, Harrelson found out about his father's occupation when he was 12 years old. Charles Harrelson passed away in prison in 2009. And at number 7, Rihanna. Rihanna is one of the most successful female musicians of all time, but she's another star with some family issues that she tried to keep a secret. Apparently one day out of the blue, Rihanna discovered that her father, Ronald Fenty, had another secret family. And that meant that Rihanna had 2 sisters and 1 brother that she never knew existed, with all of the 3 siblings having different mothers. Her father was also addicted to alcohol, drugs, and sex. But after some time, it seems that Rihanna has been the bigger person, and they've been able to repair their relationship. And at number 6, Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin is a woman known for making everyone around her laugh. But like with a lot of comedians, Kathy used humor to cope with a lot of the bad she was dealt when she was younger. In her autobiography, My Life on the D-List, she speaks about the trauma she endured because of her brother, Kenny. She wrote that he was inappropriate with her very often, and that led her to have a lot of internal issues. She also claims that when she was around him, she felt a dark and even violent presence. She even spoke further in the book about some things that she witnessed in adulthood, saying that she once saw him hurting his own wife. He eventually went to prison and then ended up passing away, but the bad memories still live with her. Halfway number 5, Mariah Carey. It was revealed that Mariah Carey was suffering from bipolar disorder, but the unfortunate part is that it wasn't Mariah herself that shared it with the world, but rather her sister. Because of her sister's comments, Mariah opened up about her sister and the issues that she has that affects Mariah as well. Mariah's sister Allison claimed that Mariah had been struggling with the disorder for years, but the relationship between the sisters is more than a little strange, and they allegedly hadn't spoken since 1994 at the time. Allison has been arrested multiple times for illegal activities, and she once told undercover cops that she could, quote, give them a sweet, sweet fantasy. Allison also calls out Mariah for not helping her with her medication, since she deals with her own issues and is in need of money to pay for the medication. Because of this, Allison has tried to extort her sister multiple times for money, which I'm sure is incredibly exhausting for Mariah. In at number 4, Lori Loughlin. This is one I'm sure you know of, but some big names in Hollywood were exposed big time when Operation Varsity Blues found that Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman had bribed their child's way into prestigious universities. Loughlin and her husband, fashion guru Massimo Giannulli, were accused of paying $500,000 to get their daughters Olivia J. Giannulli and Bella Giannulli into USC on the crew team, when, as I'm sure that you already know, they never even played the sport. In light of everything, the family lost tons of sponsorship deals, and Loughlin's contract with Hallmark came to an abrupt end. And in the end, Lori was sentenced to 2 months in prison for her crimes. And now the family's reputation will probably never be the same. And at number 3, Demi Moore. Demi Moore spilled everything about her marriage to Ashton Kutcher in her 2019 memoir, Inside Out. And there are things in the book that I'm sure she was reluctant to bring to light again. In the book, she talks about the tumultuous 8-year marriage to Ashton Kutcher, giving details on the fact that they had a threesome because Ashton essentially begged for it. After it happened, Moore was regretful about the situation, but it seemed that Ashton was not, and only made him more distant in the marriage. Writing in her book, quote, because we'd brought in a third party into our relationship, Ashton said that blurred the lines and to some extent justified what he'd done, speaking about the fact that it led to him cheating down the line. But the marriage was over after he admitted to cheating on her with a 21-year-old woman in 2011, adding in an interview that the divorce is the reason she had a relapse with her alcohol addiction. Saying in the Red Table Talk interview, quote, the addiction was in the codependency. My addiction to Ashton was probably almost more devastating than alcohol because it took me seriously away emotionally. And because she had spilled all of these secrets, she was asked why she decided to talk about all this now, with her responding, quote, I think my desire was to really get to a place where I'm okay to really be seen. Adding, quote, when there isn't anything to protect, that's a great spot. And at number 2, Allison Mack. The case of Smallville actor Allison Mack was one of the most shocking and disturbing in recent years. On April 20th of 2018, the actor was arrested in Brooklyn on charges of sex trafficking, along with other similar crimes. Apparently, she was heavily involved in a bad group of people called NXIVM, and apparently she was used to recruit women into the group. And then these victims were later exploited by the group in numerous ways. After a lengthy trial, Mack pled guilty to the charges. However, it's been over a year since she was sentenced, and no time has actually been given. So she's been on house arrest in her parents' house this whole time. And at number 1, Meghan Markle. Since Meghan Markle became one of the most famous people on earth basically overnight, a lot has been exposed about her, a lot that I'm sure she wishes didn't. One thing is that her sister said she, quote, is a social climber with a soft spot for gingers. Okay. But one of the biggest secrets about Meghan that people are pretty convinced is true is that she used to author a shady blog about the industry. The blog was called, quote, The Working Actress. And to give you an idea of some of the stuff she wrote about, the blog said it was documenting the ups and downs of a hustling young actress in the cutthroat world of Hollywood. In February 2018, the Daily Mail reported that impeccable sources from California confirmed that Meghan Markle wrote the blog, with an actor named Lance Carter telling Daily Mail, quote, yeah, it was definitely Meghan who wrote it. Then in Andrew Morton's biography, Meghan, a Hollywood Princess, the magazine included The Working Actress in a list of the royals' former jobs. So clearly her more public blog, The Tig, wasn't all she was writing.